phrase, "I can just test my dog for rabies," is a terrible argument. Like, yeah, you can get your dog tested for rabies, but do you really want to? And before you answer that question, let me just tell you how animals get diagnosed with rabies. Say your dog bites someone and the authorities get involved, and those authorities ask, "Do you have that dog's vaccination record?" And you say no. If that is the case, your dog needs to be tested for rabies. And that process is horrible. As just to give you some insight before I give you the details of rabies diagnoses, there is no rabies diagnosis that can take place ante-mortem. And in simpler terms, your dog needs to see the pearly gates in order for it to get its diagnosis. So here's the diagnosis process. There are 3 different ways that the diagnosis can occur. However, all 3 of those ways need to involve a sample of brain tissue from the animal. And that brain tissue can only be extracted post-mortem. So once your dog is euthanized, scientists will extract that brain tissue that they need to use as a sample, and then they can run 3 different tests on that brain tissue. The first test that can be run is the direct fluorescent antibody test, also known as the DFA test. This is like the gold standard test for rabies diagnoses. And basically how DFA tests work is the scientists will grab the brain tissue sample, slather it with antibodies, and then whenever the rhabdovirus, also known as the rabies virus, attaches to those antibodies, they will fluoresce, thus showing you that the sample carries the rabies virus. Another form of diagnosis is called immunohistochemistry, which also uses antibodies to visually identify the rabies virus. And then finally, for the third form of diagnosis, we have every scientist's favorite method, PCR, also known as the polymerase chain reaction. And how this test works to identify the rabies virus is it will amplify the specific genetic sequence of the rabies virus, thus allowing for the virus to be detected in that way. So yeah, those are the 3 methods of diagnoses for rabies. And they are really cool. However, what's not cool is having to euthanize your furry friend in order to test them for it.